Okay. All right. Shalom Aleichem, everybody, and welcome. I want to give a special welcome to Rav Daniel Sharrat. He's the Kashrus administrator for OU Kosher, world expert in Tolayim. Tolayim is worms, bugs, and one of the main dishes that we're going to use on Pesach, and we're primarily getting ready for Pesach already, are lettuce, romaine lettuce. I mean, I'm not going to step on his toes, but because it's very, very applicable, and we're in a series of Halachic of Koshering. We finished Vilas Kalim. We're going to roll into Hagalas Kalim. So, Limdach Torah Derech Litan Hefzik from Parsha to Parsha. I figured this would be a good topic to insert right now. And Rabbi Sharrat is an expert in this. And although we'll let everybody please mute your mic, Rabbi Sharrat will give a share. He actually has, he's on twice because he actually wants to show us videos of the little crawling, creeping things. And I see he's on twice. And the questions, I mean, not everybody gives a class like me where you interrupt and you say whatever's on your mind, whatever you want. Like Shleimer, most people like to give their share and not to be interrupted. So let him do it his way. And Rabbi Daniel, it's all yours. Yashikayach, and I'm sure everybody's going to have a lot to learn and a lot to ask.
Well, as the phrase goes, "Tein l'chacham yichacham noid," right? So this is hopefully it would just be a taste. I'm sure the Olam is going to want, to get more into it.
Nobody wants to taste the bugs.
That's what chachma, taste the chachma. Okay, this is Hashem. So shkayach Rabbi Wilhelm for giving me the kavod of presenting to the Olam here. Nice geschmacka hamish Olam. So what I'm going to do is just see where this is going. What we're going to do is I'm just going to go through some Makomos to present some different shitas. We're going to take a break. Any questions? And then we're going to actually see bugs live and actually put in perspective of the bugs the playskim are actually talking about. And then the Makabapatish is we'll learn up a tshuvas, a tzemach tzedek that is really relatively well known within the Chabad community, and we'll maybe come out with a beautiful Havana in Shittas of the Tzemach Tzedek and Chabad in general. Okay, so that being said, we'll start with the Torah Kadosha. In Parsha Shmini, in Parag Yud Aleph, Pasuk Mem Aleph to Mem Gimel, state as follows. V'chol hasheretz hashayretz al haaretz sheketzu. Any sheretz that's shayretz al haaretz, it's a sheketz. Lo yachel. Kol haylech al gachain. Anything that goes on its stomach. V'chol haylech al arba. Ad kol marbe raglaim, on any of the legs. L'chol hasheretz hasheretz. Any sheretz that's shayretz al haaretz, that crawls on the ground. Lo yisaychlum ki sheketem. Al teshaksu es nafshay seichem. Do not, discuss be disgusted with your nefesh. B'chol hasheretz hasheretz v'lo yisatamu b'hem v'nit mesem bam. Okay, so derech agav in other places, the Gemara in Bava, the Bava Metzia Daf Samach Gimel says that when a Kadosh Baruch Hu took the Yidden out of Mitzrayim, relevant to Pesach, the Torah uses a lashon of, because I elevated Alisa min Mitzrayim, I elevated you from Mitzrayim, and then the Torah says don't eat shratzim. So the Gemara asks, what's this unique lashon by Yitzias Mitzrayim? It should Yitzia, not because I elevated you out of Mitzrayim. So the Gemara says, because had it not, if it had been Kedai, the Eser Makas, Kriyas Yamsuf, all that would have been Kedai, just for Yidden not to eat shratzim. Why? Because they're Metame Es HaNefesh, more so than anything else. The Orach Chaim HaKadosh on that pasuk also says that if a Yid Chas v'Sholom does eat sheretz, he reverts back to the Mem Tes Shariat Tuma. It's taken away. That aliyah is taken away. Chas v'Sholom.
Rabbi Daniel, would you like to define in plain English the word sheretz? Because sheretz is a very big name.
Beautiful. So on that, Rashi addresses the kasha. So Rashi, what does sheretz mean? Rashi says, Diber Maschel lo yeachel, L'chayev al hamachil ka'oichel, to chayev one on the eating as if he's oichel. The ain krui sheretz, what it's only called a sheretz because ella davar namuch kutzer regline, because it's something that's really short. The legs are really, really tiny. She'enai nira, it doesn't seem visible. Ella kereichesh v'nad. The only way you're able to identify it as a sheretz is Sharratt, that it runs. You only see it moving. You don't see the legs crawling all about. So the Lashon Rashi brings down a Sharratt is Sharratt. The
So
only
a water
way
bug wouldn't be considered a Sharratt.
it's a Sharratt Hamayim. That's a different pasuk. We're going to get to that in a minute. Right? But what I want to do is we're going to focus specifically on the Sharratt Haaretz for now. But good question. Okay, good. So far, so good. That's with the Chumash. Now, we jump. There's a lot of Gemaras, but we'll makatzer zayin a little. So the Gemara Makkos, Daf Tes Zayin Amid Beis, says as follows. Quoting the Mishnah, so the Gemara says as follows. Amar of Yehuda, Haiman the Achal Binisa debe Karava Maklinin Le Mishum Sheretz Al Haaretz. Fine. So Rav Yehuda says, one who eats a Benisa Dibi, we'll see what that means in a minute. Malkina Le, we give him Malkus because of Sheretz Hashairetz Al Haaretz. Okay, that's Chiddush number one. Whatever this mysterious land bug is. Ahud Achal Binisa Debe Karaba, Benagde Rav Yehuda. And then, so somebody did it, and Rav Yehuda put him in Nidoy. So Amar Baye. Now, Vaita the Gemara continues. Achal Putisa Loika Arba. Person who eats this Putisa bug, whatever that is, he gets 4 malchus, 4 sets of malchus. Namala, if he eats an ant, like a chamish, mishum sheretz hasheretz al haaretz, he gets 5 for eating the ant. An ant, we all see that, we all know what that is. Now, if a yid ate tzra, like a sheish, if he ate a wasp, he gets 6 malchus, mishum sheretz ha'oif, because sheretz ha'oif. Now, Rabbi said, where we're going with this is we are going to specifically deal with the most controversial shaila in the realm of Tolayim, in halacha. And that is, how big or how small does the bug have to be considered a bug in halacha? Right? What, in other words, is it near leinayim? Is it visible to the naked eye? So first, we're going to reverse engineer a little bit from the Gemara, and we're going to go a little bit lower, and a little bit more. Okay? So bear with me. Now, what are these bugs that the Gemara is talking about? So Rashi says, Benisa debe rachrava. Rashi says, Toilas hanimtzis bechru. It's a bug that's found in cabbage. Shekairin tzaila balaz. Whatever that means. Couldn't really find a good old translation on that. Now, Taisvis, talking about Inyan Diyama, what Rabbi Wilhelm just mentioned. Taisvis is a kasha. Taisvis parish of kuntris, Toilas hanimtzis bechru. Bug found in cabbage. V'nikam etzayla. The kasha, says Taisvis. The my kamash malan. Pshitale. It's pashit. What is the chiddush? The Gemara has to tell me that this bug in cabbage, you're chayiv 4 sets of malchus. It's a davar pashit. It's simple. So because of this kasha, pshita, the sheretz gomerhu, this bug that's in cabbage is a sheretz gomer. So, uparish Rabbeinu Tam, binisa kamay dag cotton. It's like a little tiny fish. Hanimsa b'machrisha. That's found in, I guess, within the scales of the flesh of the fish. But kamash malan, the afagav, the nimsa b'mayim, hayamater. Even though this bug, this little tiny fish thing, if it would be in the water, it would be mater. Lafish yesh loy kaskasim, because it has little tiny scales, afilo hachi, like a afagav di'ahabe b'mayim tar. So Taisa says a chiddush that since it's Yaitzim min Amayim, it's not considered a dog tahor, and it's considered a sheretz al haaretz, so to speak. So Taisa takes this Gemara and has a wild chiddush on it. But at the moment right now, what we see clearly is that there's no machlokes between Rashi and Taisa about this bug that's in cabbage. It's davar pashit hu. Okay, so far so good. Okay, good. Now, Rashi continues. Ochol plutisa. So bala sheretz hamayim. It's a bug. If you swallowed it on that, then you get another set of malchus because of sheretz hamayim. Now, like a arba, this is going to be important. Shnei lavin ksuvim b'sheretz hamayim. So you have Y4. You have two ksuvim by sheretz hamayim. Echad b'teres kahanim, echad b'mishnah Torah. And Shnei Lavin Ksuvin B'Sheretz Stam. There's two generic of Lavin by Asheretz Stam. V'loy Tishakses Nafshoy Seichem B'chol Asheretz Asheretz V'loy Setmal B'hem, which the psukim we just learned. Umashma Bein Sheretz Hamayim Bein Sheretz Haaretz. Whether or not it's a Sheretz Hamayim or a Sheretz Haaretz, you get the two for there and the two for Sheretz Haaretz and two for Sheretz Hamayim. And then there's the additional one for Sheretz Ha'if. So one of these sets of malchus is al tashaksu nefesh seichem. That's going to be important for later on. Okay, now let's jump. We're going to skip ahead a little bit, and we're going to go to the Aruch HaShulchan. I just want to show you to where this can really go. So, big ashkafa Rishina, the Aruch HaShulchan in Hilchos Dagim, Siman Pei Gimel, Sif Katan Tes Vav. And he says as follows: the type of fish that has little tiny scales that's barely visible to the naked eye, it's butter. That's considered kaskesses. But so now he says, Amnam, Baria Ba'alma Ena Moil Fi Mashnis Bar, the Tzarech Shia B'Yichaylos L'Tolfin. Fine, the da, and you should know as follows: should davar pashit hu, it's a davar pashit, the bedavar shetzarech rias ayin, Ena Moil Imrain Ideas Chugis HaMagdalas Hariya. If you need to use a magnifying glass in order to see it, and the tzarech liras be'ein and you can't see it without it, it doesn't work. The tzarech liras be'ein atzma. You need to see it with the eye itself, without any magnification. V'chein hu be'in yadim shebechol atayra kula b'mash tzarech ri'is ayin. And that goes with anything in the Torah that it needs to be visible to the naked eye without any magnification for that. Now, if we could continue weiter, the Aruch HaShulchan continues in.
You know that you're putting the esrig business into shambles now, because that's the esrig business. Everybody comes with the magnifying glasses. That's the same question. Do you have?
No, that is only legabe sheretz that is the halacha. Esrig has different.
So this halacha, we're leaving aside an esrig. Because maybe that's a different din of pre-hadar has to look na.
The Tabina says it makes sense over there too.
Yeah, but legabe enechanami, but legabe tefillin, to make sure it's square, you don't need magdalas, has to be near leinayim. Now it also comes on hilchos shchita, this lashon of near leinayim, but we have to be careful. We don't use gezer shabbos here of the word of near leinayim, because what it means by shchita is different than what it means by safris, and kenzayin what it means legabe talayim. So, for example, by shchita, when it says roiv hekef is a kosher shchita, so machlek is a shaynim. What does roiv mean? Is it roiv hekef? Near leinayim is a lashon, but there were many rishonim, including the Rash, that says afilu kuchot asara is roiv, and that would be a kosher shchita near leinayim. So kuchot asara, if we want to measure it, that could actually mean that according to many. So we just have to be careful when we're being medam and milsa la. So the Aruch HaShulchan and Pei Daled. Which simon which sif cotton did I write?
You had well, the first one was Tet Vav.
Hold on, I'll tell you in a second. I'll tell you in a second.
The pay gimel.
No, that wasn't it. It was Aruch HaShulchan, Sif Cotton, Lamed Vav. There it is. Okay, Sif Cotton Lamed Vav. Okay. Okay, now he ends off as follows, right? Again, the Aruch HaShulchan just said that we have to be able to see it to the visible naked eye with no magnification. Okay, now, so, okay. So since we're talking about Tolayim, this is towards the end of Sif Katan Lamed Vav, that since you can't see it with the naked eye with bugs, Lav Klumu, it's garnished. However, but that which your AI is able to see, important words here, Rabbi Sai, afilu neged hashemesh, even if you have to hold it up against the sun, Vafilu dak min hadak, even if it's the smallest of the smallest, if your eye can see it, havish sharetz gomer. It is a bug according to halacha. And just reverberating this, the Ben Ish Chai in Parshas Nasle Shana Beis talks about the chaymitz, that what you would do is you would take it, the chaymitz, and would hold it up at the window against the sunlight and use that to see if there's any bugs in there. So now we're getting a little bit smaller. But again, the Aruch HaShulchan is very stark, no magnification required, but it has to be dak min hadak is a sharetz gomer. Now, let's go a little bit meidach gisa. So the Derech Tshuvas brings down in
So accordingly to Aruch HaShulchan, we could eat anything.
as long as you check it for bugs but not anything. Again,
No, when
if
they
it's
say
dak
just,
min hadak, it's a sharetz gomer. So I don't know what you mean by you could eat anything.
no, like you have this wild salmon fish that they claim that there's bugs in it. Lo the Aruch HaShulchan, it's not a problem. You can't see it.
Well, it's a different sugya. The anisakis worm is if that's considered pirish minutes or it's mishaba. Yeah. Ahainu Rabise is the shaila. It's a little bit different. Okay, now in Siman Tzadi, in Sif Katan Tzadi Dalet in the Darchei Tshuva, in the third paragraph, he brings the shailas yavitz, and there's a tuvtan v'das v'chulu, and now he brings like this. So there's two types of minim that we need to talk about, right? One min is big giant bugs, look back cockroaches, everyone sees, no problem. Those davar pasha. We're not talking about those. V'hamina shenihu hachnima. It's like a little tiny chnima. Shekarin milbin. Anybody know what milbin means in Yiddish? It means mites. Mites. Now there's a heavy shiloh in the poskim regarding mites and flower mites. Now, when we say mites, this technically the arachnid family is the most robust family of species in the world, in the animal kingdom. There's approximately 40,000 different species of mites. So some mites
aren't arachnid spiders?
Yes, mites are 8 legs. So it's arachnid is like the familia, the class, the familia. Then you can go into different subsets. But the mites in particular, approximately 40,000 different species. Also, fun fact. Sorry, I'm going off tangent a little bit. But fun fact is, just to give you the flies habayre, there is one for every one person. There's approximately 300 million bugs in the world. So multiply that by 8 billion people. So, if you're in the business of making sure you don't eat bugs, you have good job security.
Rabbi, we know that the pasuk says the malachim yipo mitzitcha alef or revava mimenacha. We're surrounded with angels also. Hundreds of thousands of angels. So we have bugs and we have angels. It's fine.
Yeah. Now they're inadvertently related to each other, by the way, because the Orach Chaim HaKadosh by the man, when the yin left it overnight, it became matliya, right? And they couldn't eat it anymore. So the Orach Chaim HaKadosh says on that pasuk when there's more tuma in the world, there are more Tolayim. So the more the tuma is in the Welt, the more there are Tolayim. So it's an interesting hashkafa Orach Chaim HaKadosh on that. Now, anyways, we digress. So Vamin Hasheni, Hu Hachnim Shekarin Milbin. V'zeh gam ken yeshnu b'bidika. And you also do the bidika. Ayidei tamim v'ayin yafe, and with a really good eye. Midbatka b'shimsha, and you be check it and you be mishamish it. By the way, this is very difficult to do. Checking ayidei mishmush. Al yidei kli zechuchis migadol harois, or a magnifying glass. That's what you need in order to use these milbin. V'im nimtza. Now, if you find them with your magnifying glass, bavadai ne'aser kuloi, your whole entire flour, everything is aser. V'loi mahani le shum tikkun. There's no tikkun. La'achloi achen kol shenivda kanal. However, if you checked everything like this, v'loi nimtza boy, I ain't lachashid. Then you don't have to worry. You did your bedika eskazatei. Learned it in the Torah, Lamalachei Asharis, because the Torah wasn't given to Malachei Asharis, it was given to Bnei Adam like us, and therefore it's subject to our faculties of what we're able to perceive in the Welt. There are microscopic bugs flying all over the world every second we're breathing in. We can't see them. The Torah wasn't given to Malachei Asharis, so those don't count. Only that which is visible to the naked eye. Now, we have here the Shilas Yavitz and other Paiskim that seem to suggest you dafka need a magnification, even for milbin, which are pretty small. Now, when it comes to other Paiskim, there's the Igros. Oh, sorry. Now, the Pri Chadash takes this a step further when talking about mint leaves. The Pri Chadash in Pei Daled, I think Sifkat and Yudalev, talks about what happens if, nana, which is mint, very popular for Sephardim. Pri Chadash is a Sephardi. You're looking and you can't see it. He doesn't discuss whether or not using magnification. So rather, what you should do is rub your thumbs through the leaves to make sure there are no bugs there that you can't see. Why is that necessary? If you can't see it, it's not a bug. So this is a ha'ara on the Pri Chadash, which as Hashem will get to with the Tzemach Tzedek.
Specific to mint?
Specific to mint. The Pri Chadash specifically mentions mint, but the Tolayim, he's in the mint we find nowadays, the most common bug, that's one of the two most common bugs that's found in mint, which is small enough to be that concern of the Pri Chadash, is a type of spider mite. Specifically, the two-spotted spider mite. Okay.
No, I think he was asking because the mahalach that we know that when not every fruit or vegetable you buy you check, because it depends on the meal and the roy. Is the mint an infested thing? Because you don't check every time you buy cucumbers or pepper.
Correct.
You check only by something that's known to be infested. So where you got to give us the list what's infested. I'm not getting to asparagus and it's basic.
Yeah. So just to recap briefly, there are 3 levels in halacha of levels of infestation. There's something called miyat she'enoi matzi, which is a miyat, which is a minority of the time, she'enoi matzi, that's not common at all. So it's a minority of the time, and even if that minority, it's rare. So a great example of that is the proverbial worm in the apple, right? When you buy an apple, you're not obligated to check it before you eat it. That's level 1. Level 2 is something called miyat hamatzli. A miyat, not
even Yaakov Chaim's apples. Yaakov, no.
So miyat hamatzli, miyat is a minority of the time, but it's matzli. It's relatively common. Many shittas and how to shots that up, but because it's somewhat still relatively common, Chazal established a chiyuv midirabanan to check your produce, check the item, whatever it is we're talking about, before you eat it. That's the middle ground. Then the third level.
What are you putting into that category? Which fruits and vegetables are you putting into that category?
So a lot of fruits and vegetables, like mint would be an example of that. Romaine lettuce would be another example of that. Your generic leafy greens and herbs would fall typically in that category of miyatamatsui. Now, muchzik b'talayim is where majority of the time there is a presence of infestation. And since, according to the Torah, acharabim lahatos, we go according to the majority, it's presumed there are bugs there, and it's a bin haTorah, it's a Torah prohibition of you eating that before checking.
What are you going to put into that category?
Well, let's say
blueberries.
let's make it a little easy for me before washing. Okay, so before washing, your strawberries, blackberries, raspberries, kale, adult curly kale would typically fall in that category as an example. Okay, so
I want to ask you a drop off topic.
sure.
Is organic more infested than non-organic? Is that a true thing or not?
It is a true thing. In the United States, it's a little bit embellished. In Europe, it's more there's more of a significant difference. Okay, now
Are dates very infested? The big
are dates infested? No,
the big ones? No.
no, typically not. Okay, now I'm going to go to my bug cam here in a second. So, does anybody have? We have a $5 bill here, but if you have a single, it can work for the beginning part.
Rabbi, I'll tell you a good story with Rabbi Eilish Sapner. He was once in court, and the judge asked the shamish. He was becoming a citizen. Asked the rabbi, who is the man on the dollar bill? So Rabbi Eilish tells this gabbai, tell the judge, tells him, Intera hindete kikich. I don't look at anything under $100 bill.
Okay, so I want to show you here. Everyone can see the. There we go. All right, can everyone see that on my screen? Series 2017. On the bug cam, not the one where you see my face, but where you see the dollar bill, the $5 bill. Can you pin that, Rabbi Wilhelm?
I don't know how to pin it, but I see it. Everybody see it? Shake your head if you see it. You see one of the spaces. Yeah, he's a $5 bill now. You see that?
I don't see it.
I don't see anything.
Semach, because you're in a car. You see how many people
Yeah,
do you
you
see?
have to pin first. Whoever's in the car, you have to pin his other name, the one that is not that is muted.
His name comes up twice, Rabbi. The rabbi's name Daniel
The
Sharrat.
muted
Okay,
one.
can
You have to
everyone
pin
see
it.
it now? I pinned it.
No, not you have to pin it. Everybody has to pin it.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so
It's still not showing.
I see part of it, the PK57.
Okay, good. So now what I want to show you is if everyone has a dollar bill, towards the bottom middle right side, there's a series number. Okay? So for example, here, you're going to have a series 2017. Everyone could see that to the naked eye.
I'm
That's
just kind of showing you a Japanese dollar there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's so Ari, you could see that, right? Good. So those letters, just to give you an idea, we're going to throw some numbers here just to make it relevant. That's 1 millimeter tall. Okay. No Shiloh there.
1 second. Somebody's mic is on. Somebody's mic besides Rabbi Sharratt's on. Okay. That's 1 millimeter. Okay.
1 millimeter length. Now, every dollar bill, every denomination of currency, and has a little Easter egg over here, a little treasure that's hidden. So, for example, on the $5 bill, along here in these little circles, there's some writing. So, if we zoom in on it, you could see the writing. $5. These letters are a fifth in size, 0.2 millimeters of that which we had from over here. That's 1 millimeter. The wording in here is 0.2 millimeters. Okay? A lot of people have trouble seeing this with the naked eye. Buy a $20 bill, you'll have the writing in here. It says USA 20. Now, if you want to have some fun in person, check it with a magnification, and then see if you could read it without the magnification. What typically happens is the follows. Many people, I wouldn't say majority, but once you magnify it and you can read the words, when you remove the magnification, some people are now able to read it now that they know it's there. Interesting. Now, we're going to go a step weiter.
What do you want to say? That's called Nirlei Naim because
Well, we'll see. According to some poskim, you need a magnification. Others say you don't. So Ken Zion with this yishuv, they're not necessarily arguing with each other. But, okay, now we're going to show you your first bug. This is the most common bug you will find in the Welt.
What's it doing in your house?
I prepared it for the item. Okay, now I'm going to show you the different levels. Hold on, the baby crawled away.
Aaron, this is so up your alley, Aaron. No, Aaron Dukes.
I cannot see. I
We're
cannot
done
see
there.
this.
Okay, now this is the first bug. This is the main bug. This is the most common bug in halacha, in produce that requires checking, and it is called the thrip. Can everyone see that?
Which one? You have three of them there.
It's all the same thrip. We have the mommy, the alter bacher, a young bacher, and the baby.
Rabbi Willem, when you're recording this, you'll be able to see his slide.
I see every. I think.
You see, but the recording, usually you only see the guy that speaks, and that's muted. Unless if you pin it. Maybe Rabbi Willem pin his thing.
Let me see. Here, hold on. I'll pin this.
I have tried to pin and I'm not able to see anything.
I just
No,
hold on.
maybe if Rabbi Willem pins it, it might do
Did
a
I
better
change
job.
anything? Pin this time. This helped anybody?
You pinned it for everyone, so now everybody should see it. Yeah.
Emma, do you see it now? I just made.
I see it fine. Yes, I see it. Thank you.
Now, Rabbi, how did you identify the Zocher from in the cave there?
Well, I didn't. But you can identify the difference between an adult and an adolescent, and these are the four stages you have with a thrip. So on the far left, you have the adult. You see how it's dark in color? That's mature.
It looks
I'm
to
going to
me
show
like
you.
it looks like to me like your paper is a little bit schmitzik. That's it.
Here. There's a lot more here too, okay. So the one next to it is called the Instar Stage 2 thrip. Then one next to that, a little bit smaller, is Instar Stage 1, and the one next to that, all the way in the bottom, is the baby, which is the crawler stage.
Are you on a special cloth? Is this on a special cloth or it's just a regular napkin?
No, this is on a special thrip cloth that I use.
Oh, so this is are you able to notice it better on the cloth?
Yes.
Why? What does the cloth do?
Well, it just filters the water and it makes it a lot easier. It condenses all the layers into one flat surface that's easy to check. That's transparent.
Okay.
So now you see here all the four stages. When you say a thrip, if it's visible with the naked eye or not, we're talking about things which can be drastic in size, no different than a human being. A newborn infant baby is, much, much smaller than an adult male, right? We're talking very big differences. So same thing is true with bugs. Now, I'm going to take this adult and I'm going to put it next to our series on the dollar bill, and we're going to see what size we're talking about. Okay? So just bear with me here. I'm going to use a little magic with my toothpick. And I'm going to take that guy and I'm going to put him on the dollar bill.
Where do you store them when you're not giving shiurim? And how do you find them?
I go to the store and I find and I know where to look. I know which produce they're most common in. Sometimes it's a little annoying where everything's clean in the winter time, and I'm like, oh no, I gotta give a presentation. Okay. He's squirming a little. Bear with me, Rabbi Say.
What are you trying to show us how small it is? Because they look.
Well, I'm going to show you how big it is. So remember our series 2017 on the bill? He moved again. You know, there we go. We'll do the best we can.
What magnification do you use for this?
Right now, this is a magnification of a 10.
10x. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
But what happened that it's not near Nayim? You're saying it's not visible.
Well, so that I just want to show you, so this way you could see.
Oh, it's like a letter. It's white. It's like the letter S.
Much longer than the letter. Much longer than the letter. So this is definitely near the lion, according to everybody. It's over 1 millimeter in length. Everyone can read Series 2017 right here. I mean, it's not so good. And then that bug is a lot bigger than that. Now, Masha Kane, if we find, say, a smaller baby, he's going to be a lot smaller than that. Now, again, the difference between adolescents and adults is the color. The color is important.
Now the question is for Karen, if you find one, is there a raya that there's a baby next to it, or are you saying once only if you find more than one, you find more than two or more than three? But if you find one, it could be you just got rid of the problem and that's it.
Yep. I mean, I found about 30 here.
And one apple and one what?
And 2 heads of romaine lettuce. So now the babies get a little smaller.
How long did it take you to find 30 of them?
2 minutes.
Okay.
Now, let me show you something here. So now, remember the Rashi and the Gemara Makkos on chrub, on cabbage? So here's cabbage. The thrip is one of the most common types of bugs in cabbage. And I want to show you what it looks like on cabbage itself.
Is today cabbage still considered a roiv hamatzui?
Cabbage is still considered miyat hamatzui.
Miyat hamatzui.
Yeah. Okay, so now, here he is. Now, remember I mentioned the color? He's got that. So it's almost a similar, that yellowish color hue is very similar to the color of your light greenish leaves, right? You are what you eat, right? So the Tolayim in general can also be similar in color.
Why is size a difference? What's the difference? I mean, it's a living creature, no matter what size it is. Why are you making just you're saying you Pasha can't see it? It doesn't make a difference. Halachically, it doesn't make a difference what size the torah is. It's just you're saying it's harder to see.
Well, it's harder to see, but with this, I think that's a beautiful time to discuss the Tzemach Tzedek. But before I share with you the Tzemach Tzedek, I just want to read you an Igros Moshe, because there are many opinions about what's visible to the naked eye, what's not. Is it 0.2 millimeters, 0.3, 0.4, 0.5, 1 millimeter? So just Elu Elu Divrei Elikim Chaim. So the Igros Moshe in Chelik Dalet of Yeridea, Simon Bays says as follows. The Bekitzer says, "V'gam Shemay Kamay Shamarti Lachol Oid Hardbe Anasin to Bechlal Yesh Chafish Gedoyla Bahalacha Kalminaga Oilam You can't say that. Let me just back up a second. Okay. Shamati Eza Anashim Amu Bishmi. I heard people say in my name, says Ramesha. Eza Svara Be'inyan Tolayim Hakatanim. Tiny little bugs that are found in many types of Yerakos. Ramesha says, I didn't say any hachra on this. Well, I hapach, and not only that, fakir. Ramesha's das is actually leaning towards being a little bit more lenient. Not to asher every little tiny dot that there is, but actually be a little bit more lenient. So now, and he ends off, and it's not shy to go out and mafarsim that it's a vadai isser on these little tiny small bugs. And Ramesha said, I don't want my name to be associated with those that say it's vadai isser. Just a hashkafa.
The bugs that you need magnifying glasses.
Yes. He doesn't want to give a hachra that it's usher or mutter, even though his das is noita to be matir. Now, with this, I want to share with you. We're going to learn the chuvas tzemach tzedek inside. So I'm going to share my screen with the olam. Let's see, window. Here we go. Share. Okay. Do you have to unpin the other?
No, you're on.
It's good.
All right, good. So this is Charles and Chuvas Tzemach Tzedek from Lubavitch, where it's in Chelik Yerdea, Simin Ayin, Sif Cut and Gimel, and we're jumping ahead and learning up Sif Cut and Dalet. Now, just to Kedarka the Kaidish, the Tzemach Tzedek, it's a very heavy tshuva where he discusses where you have a taruvis, a shayla of a taruvis, where it's yavish balach, and you can only be if it's nicker ha'isser or not, only all day mishmash.
Sorry, this is a barrier. I feel about it.
Yes. We're going to get to that in a second. So he ends off. He discusses the pre-chadash and different shitas. Is it shmona shratz and b'shari sorim? Okay, but he ends off as follows: Al pi hanal. According to everything I just said, that when we're talking about again yavish balach taruvis, where if it's hecker, if you can be nicker ha'isser or not, all day mishmash. If you can't, we'll see. Efshar lahatir inyan hakraut. We're talking about kraut. Rabbi Sai, what is kraut made out of? Which vegetable?
Cabbage. What do you mean?
Cabbage. Gavaldik.
Cabbage.
Shabbat kuhu metalayim. The chassid we're talking about checked the kraut, the cabbage for talayim. Kehel chasai, kenayig, like he always does. Virachzuhu, and then he washed it afterwards. Vasu, and then he made his sauerkraut, right? And he got the mayonnaise and the alazachen in it, right? Va'achakach, and then a yid who just had a whole shiur about baby thrips comes along. Naidish yesh min talayim, told this chassid, hey, did you know there's a type min talayim dakim ma'oid that are really tiny? Kamara hakraut mamish, that are mamish the same color as the cabbage. Vitzrichim bedika, and these require bedika. So, Rabbi Sai, what type of bug do you think he's talking about?
Thrips.
Adults or babies?
The babies. The adults are darker.
That's right. Bingo. Now, hold on a second. There are at least 3 or 4 different levels and stages of baby thrips here, right? Which ones are we talking about? So now, Tzemach Tzedek continues. Now, the shaila is, he checked it for talayim, he washed it, he cooked it. What do we do? Do we matir or not? Because it goes without saying that a yid who's completely unaware of something, we don't reckon, lav daite ramya adaite, right? His das wasn't even the gay on it, so it doesn't count. If he was aware of it and he checked, he didn't see anything, then that would count. But since he was unaware of it, it's command delay. Now, the tshuva continues. The al kol panim achshav. Now, It is impossible to distinguish between these baby thrips. Again, this is my personal belief. You know, I can only go by what I see in Mitzias now. I'm assuming that in the tshuva. It's important. I need to say that. So now it's impossible lahakir beinu mebena crowd. In Cain, batal midaraisa. So now midaraisa, it's batal. Rak hachashash. Now the chashash is mishum beria, which we know a beria is not batal. Now va'ayin, important point. Have your antennas up here. Va'ayin crazy uplesi siman kaf hamatzi le shomer. So the crazy places says as follows: Milbin mites, Einam Barian. Maybe Milbin mites are not considered a beria in halacha. Why? Because a beria has to be usher from its beginning to the end. And since the mites in the beginning of their life cycle were not visible to the naked eye, so then if that's the case, it's not considered a beria. Rak achakach, when they grow up. Could the parish kan? So too here says it's Tzemach Tzedek. Pause. We see from this tshuva the fact that the Tzemach Tzedek is contemplating using this crazy placey as a sniff lahatir shows you that the very smallest stage of the baby thrip he wouldn't consider near leinayim. Otherwise, it would not even be a starter because he's assuming it's not aser mitchilas mibriasoi. That's the only way this tshuva makes sense for him to use the crazy placey. So far, so good.
Is it not near Le'inaim? It's not considered a beria yet.
It's not considered a beria because at one point in time in its life, it was not visible to the naked eye, and therefore it wasn't aser at that point.
There could be another svara. It's not because it's not nearly 9, because it wasn't Polish. It didn't come out.
But that wouldn't make sense. So that is one way to learn the crazy placey, but pashtus, at least in this case, it's not. So there's actually panim me'iras in the Pesach Tshuva that actually discusses this tzad, but he says it's because it's too small. What specifically Milbin? Any bug. Milbin is hagufa because of their size. That's the pashtus of the crazy placey.
So
learn that svara, but that's the pashtus.
Is it the size or the fact that it's camouflaged and you can't see it? Maybe some bugs are just as small, but they're visible because they're darker.
It's the size because if it camouflaged, again, the tshuva starts off that it's the same color as the cabbage, so camouflage is not reckoned on as far as that's concerned. Okay, let's continue in the tshuva. Now, in Tim Tolayim, the like Kaimalon Kishmul, but then Kishas Shatlia Beive. If we would say we don't want to go like that, fine. Base. Now, second thing, Chizik Das Ha'imrin, the Be'elef Batal. There are shitas that do consider the shitas Yerushalmi that it is Batal Be'elef. Derech Agav, famous B'nai Saskar, that technically shitas Yerushalmi it's Batal in 960 parts. 1 to 960 parts. So that's the B'nai Saskar and Elul does make a whole cheshbon that in Avodas Hashem, one of the things we have to work on ourselves is being mevatel the yeshus within ourselves, right? Al pi Chassidus is a davar yedua. So the B'nai Saskar says a beria, a yid has a yeshus. That's a beria. That's a davar b'fnei atzmai, right? So you shitas Yerushalmi, one part you can mevatel that lagamri, one part to 960 parts. Zuk the B'nai Saskar. How many hours are there from Rosh Chodesh Elul until Yom Kippur? Exactly 960 hours. The Avodah of a Yid on Elul, all Yom and Rayim to Yom Kippur, where he's Mogatz and Mevatel himself. The Rebbeinu Shalom is there's a sniff, a smachta for Shitas Yerushalmi. Okay, I had to throw in some Chassidus somewhere. Okay, weiter. Gimel. Shema Nimuchu. Maybe from the fact that this Yid cooked the sauerkraut, maybe the bugs were all nimayach, that they got disintegrated and now they're bottled. They're no longer considered a burial. So long story short, when the dust settles, the tzemach tzedek does matir, this shaila. But again, it's a very different shaila if somebody were to come, oh, so baby thrips, I could just eat whatever I want. No, this, you checked it, you washed it and cooked it. And there's a lot of stiff on lahater over here. But I want to point out here, in terms of just understanding the metzias of what goes on behind the tshuva, we see shitas tzemach tzedek pashtus of what is considered visible to the naked eye, what isn't. Avada, we're talking about baby thrips, which are nearly 9. However, at the smallest stages, it seems to be that he's not learning those smaller stages as nearly 9. All right, so far that's basically the shiur. Any questions?
Okay, anybody, first we have Shikoya. It was very nice. Let me start.
I have a question. When are you giving your next shiur? I'm traveling with my family, and it's never been so quiet in the car. Thank you very much. It was fascinating.
I have a question.
Oh yeah, Ari Black was next.
Okay. Is it possible, I don't know if anyone reads it this way, but just going back to in the Darchei Tshuva, right? We were talking about, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. So you were saying, I forget who you said he was quoting, but you were saying that basically it had said, if you look well with your eyes, or if then you use a magnifying glass. And so my question is, does anyone, in terms of what his position is, it could be that you could have just used your eyes. But if you use a magnifying glass and then you find it, you can't ignore that evidence.
Excellent question. So there's two things here. Number one is, remember I stressed the Gemara Makkahs, the lav of Bal Tashak Zas Nafshay Seichem, right? So the Prima Gadim speaks this out clearly. What happens if a yid has super eyesight? He's one of the Yechidi Asagula, and he's able to see bugs, which most people can't see. Is that bug? So when we go according to what's considered visible to the naked eye, the generic principle and assumption is we go to the person with average eyesight. Now, what happens if this guy has super eyesight? Is it mutter for him to eat that bug, even though he sees it?
It's a good question. Wow.
Yeah. So the Prima Gadim speaks this out in Siman Pei Daled, that for him, he still has that love of Baal Tashak Es Nafshay Seichem, since he knows it's a bug. For the general people, he can't. So the way the David brings down is ayin yafe. He stresses an ayin yafe, a real special eye, keen eye on that. So yeah, that's what he's stressing. Now, for the person with average eyesight, I don't know if you would consider an ayin yafe. That's no special praise then. It's average. It's normal. Now, mi'idach gisa, what do you do if someone's getting older or has poor eyesight? The Paiskim discuss at that point, in order to get your eyesight back to the level of normal, you would actually be obligated to use a jeweler's loupe and some sort of help of generic, not a microscope, but a ×10 magnification or something to that extent. But excellent question.
What happens to kalim if you use a vegetable that you know has a chazaka to have bugs and you forgot to wash it or to check it? What happens to kalim that were used, a knife or a bowl or a pot?
Yeah, excellent. So the Shach actually discusses this, because suppose you have the Shach discusses a case where you have a blueberry, right? And the blueberry has a big maggot in it. And you don't have 60 parts of that blueberry to the maggot. Nobody says Hanan in that case. Even if you hold by Shari Surim, you would say Hanan, right? Right, Rabbi Ham? But Machlekes, I'm sure the Eilim knows a little bit about that. So the Shach explains why. Because you will always have shishim keneged the tam of the bug. Not necessarily the bug itself, but the tom of the bug. So therefore, you never have to be concerned or kasher your kalim from these little tiny shrutsim or vegetables that have that. It will never affect the status of the kalim because we assuming the type of bugs where we would reckon it's not tam lefgam automatically, right? There's a different shach on that. Long story short, it would not affect the status of your kalim.
It's not chetichenas nevela.
No.
High pressure washing. High pressure. Is there any in your clarity in how high pressure that we could, that we could rely on?
It doesn't work.
They have tsunami systems, no? Doesn't OU give a hechsher if it's triple washed or tsunami or?
No. I mean, look, washing with high pressure is certainly better than washing with low pressure. I'll say that. But there's no magic bullet for.
Bottom line, what is the difference between the raw vegetable that you buy and the vegetables that are officially sold, the holy ones? You're paying 4 times the amount of money. What are they doing?
There's essentially 2 mahalchim. One mahalach is you control the environment in which the produce is grown in, and you try to double down and prevent any bugs from getting in the first place, or you minimize that as much as you can.
But that's not the hashgacha.
The hashgacha is very much heavily involved in that process, because without the hashgacha, the goyim, it's just not on the same. It's not the same radar as us. Not the same.
So the goyim don't care about the
not to the extent that we require. Nobody.
You'd be shocked what the government allows to have in your food.
Yeah. So one mahalach is covering a controlled environment, controlling the environment as much as you can. The second mahalach is having pre-checks, identifying produce in the field which has minimal levels of infestation, if at all, and then undergoing a rigorous washing process followed by verification afterwards that it is clean. Now they get rejected lots all the time, so there's risks associated with both mahalchim, but that's into the two boxes. Somebody had.
Raymond wanted to say something. Let me just. So what's the practical thing? Because everybody's going to buy romaine lettuce for Pesach. What do you suggest should be done for romaine lettuce for Pesach? Let's start with what everybody's going to use.
In terms of whether they should wash and check it at home or buy pre-checked?
And if they check it, if they don't buy pre-check, what do they do at home? How do you check romaine lettuce at home?
Well, I don't know. I don't know if we can do that in necessarily 2 minutes, but there's a lot of resources online where you could watch, the tutorials on how to wash it effectively and different methods of checking effectively. Now, Rabbi Raymond Boren did have a good question. He says there seems to be conflicting positions between the OU and other agencies like Star K or RCC. So yes, there are many differences of opinions in terms of what on a technical theoretical basis of what's considered visible to the naked eye. They have different positions, and I would just revert back to Ramosha that he himself didn't want to make a hachra on that. Now I only say theoretically and technically because practically, when you're finding every shaila comes up, even though necessarily, I had a shaila recently, a greenhouse company wanted certification to OU, and it was infested with mites, which technically these particular mites, the OU wouldn't consider visible to the naked eye, but nonetheless, we did not want to certify them for a multitude of reasons. So practically, when the rubber meets the road, it's a little bit, you usually don't see so much of a difference.
I see sometimes dole with some. There's a few kinds of packages, small packages.
I'm not going to answer any questions on specific companies.
Okay, they have a hechsher. I was just wondering if what the story is with them.
No comment.
Okay.
Rav Sharrat,
Can
I have
I
a
just say
question.
something regarding that, back to the guy who was asking about the high pressure washing? I worked in the kitchen in this airline thing. Everything came in industrially washed, and without fail, there were always bugs still in it. That's all I want to say. And it has to be checked meticulously if you want to not have bugs. And I'm finished. Thank you.
I'm the one.
Okay. I'm sorry. This is Raymond. I know you had a follow-up question to it. I'm sorry, but I want to address this question because I think this is a really, really important question. Ari Blech asked as follows: what changed with strawberries and blueberries versus years ago? If anything, it seems like it has gotten more problematic. Is that accurate? Yes, it is accurate. And this is probably the most common question the Velt asks. Well, you mean to tell me that they didn't, all of a sudden there are bugs everywhere? A famous Badchan said, they're finding worms in everything. They're finding worms in all the produce. They're finding worms in the fish. They're finding worms in the water. You know what he's going to do? He's going to hire scientists. They're going to find worms in the coffee. Then all the Lingalite are going to stop finding worms in everything. In any event, so there's many answers to this particular question. Number one, the strawberry you all know and love today did not exist 300 years ago. It's a new thing. Cauliflower did not exist 200 years ago. The flowering kale did not exist 100 years ago, right? These items were breeded. I'll give you this. So the strawberry we know today was cultivated from the colonizers in Chile, colonization in Chile. They found a min over there, and they crossbred it with a min native in England. And then after generations, they've gotten to the point of the strawberry that we all know and love today, where it's really tasty and has high yield. But it took a long time to get to that point. So when you say tutasade in the Gemara, don't make their assumption that it's the same exact strawberry we have nowadays. That's number one. Number two, anybody remember the lantern fly in the past year or two in the Northeast that never was here before, and all of a sudden it becomes a big issue? What happened? The globalization of the Welt nowadays
Must be global warming.
isn't like anything you've seen, isn't like anything before. The Aruch HaShulchan, for example, talks about you have two shtetls not too far from each other. Produce A you could eat in this shtetl, but you couldn't eat it in the other. And produce B was the exact opposite. Why? Because in this shtetl it was infested, and that one is not. All that has completely gone out the window. The Western flower, which was native in California, you can find it in China, in South Africa. It's all over the world. So the globalization of the Tolayim makes things, much more infested in general. That's number two. Number three is pesticides. There's a professor in University of Kentucky, that specializes in storage pests, where he said that, he remembers 40 years ago, one drop of some of this pesticide, it's like a nuclear bomb and kills them all. 40 years later, those bugs are swimming in the stuff because these bugs develop resistances, and it becomes an arms race as time goes on. It becomes more and more difficult to actually deal with these super bugs. So there's this, and lastly, just off the bat, the Orach Chaim HaKadosh, the Ruchnis aspect, there's more Tuma in the world now than there ever was before. So that's obvious, though.
Let me just finish with two more questions. And first of all, how are you going to apply this to frozen vegetables and frozen fruits? And how are you going to apply this to canned vegetables and canned fruits? What's the bottom line?
So depending on what the item is, it should, and the level of infestation before it gets washed.
Well, the general public thinks that in the freezer, all bugs disappear, to fall off. And
No.
They say there's no.
So sometimes, there's a misnomer out there where if you freeze the bugs, the eyes explode or something like that. I can tell you that's sheker, because when I give classes, sometimes I will freeze these, and then when I'm ready to give a class, I'll unfreeze them, and the bugs are.
I'm not freezing bugs, but you can freeze. If you go to the frozen section, you buy a cauliflower, the bugs will not be there anymore. They say they can't
So it's a wrong assumption, because the reason why they freeze it is because it's washed. It does undergo a washing, individually quality frozen does get washed. So because it gets washed, like the Gemara and Ksubis, right? Before the chasta, if they wash the meat, you got to make it right away, because whenever you wash something, it diminishes the shelf life significantly. So the only way you can keep that item lasting on the shelf is if you freeze it. So it does undergo a washing process. Now, depending on what was washed and its level of infestation prior to washing will be a big nafkamina on whether or not it requires a certification.
So bottom line, frozen cauliflower.
Frozen cauliflower needs a hashgacha, yes.
Okay, and now canned vegetables?
Canning similarly, as well as pickled. Canning, there's another issue where they use retorts, where they make it shelf stable. Now, these retort systems are shared with all sorts of soups, chicken broths, etc., you name it, on the canning line. So canning lines, there's an extra element of kashrus sensitivity that definitely requires a hashgacha.
Right, but what about the bugs? The retort systems are where they're cooked, but assuming it's a plant that just does the same peaches all day long or vegetables all day long, would canning take for a minute to
So in that tshuva of the Tzemach Tzedek, I'll tell you what I assume he's talking about. So he says over there on one of the sniffim that a Maisa Bishul, he says ubezet tzarchian. What's the tzarchian? Maisa Bishul is legitimate, right? So the Ben Ish Chai in I'm sorry, oh gosh, what's tshuva is it in? In one of his tshuva, in his tshuva sefer, I forgot what it's called. He actually goes by arichas because there's a Maisa in Baghdad where the water was infested with some sort of water bugs, and it got into all the dough of all the yidden before Shabbos. So how do you make dough? You need it. You actually got to get into it, right? So in other words, it's called a Maisa Gedisha. So a Maisa Bishul, what does that mean? Does that mean I just let the temperature do its thing, but no, I'm not agitating or doing anything rigorous to the pot? Or does it actually require a Maisa Gedisha? The very big topic in the Paiskin. Many Paiskin consider that you actually need a Maisa Gedisha, a Maisa of real agitation to really create that Safek HaShakal of Shemi Nimoach. Now, it's a tzarachian because, if I guess making sauerkraut, does it have that Maisa Gedisha or not? So that's what I think the Tzemach Tzedek meant by tzarachian. So if it's just inside a can, it really lacks that Maisa Gedisha properly.
Noach, ask your question. I see you have a question at the tip of your tongue.
Not really. I was just wondering if there's how fast they grow, if there's a time limit. If you inspect, there's nothing visible to the eye. Is there a time that has to be eaten with them? Because if you extend beyond that time, it grows, and now it might be visible to the eye.
Excellent. Yes. So that is something you have to consider. It's not so practical with regard to, I guess, for the general populace, like at home, you buy your own produce, but really what it really comes down to as far as, hashgachas, and when they're contemplating monitoring something, maybe it's below the threshold or whatever it is, even those bugs now are not visible to the naked eye. So we're getting back to that technical and practical component with different, what's visible naked eye. But yeah, I've had instances in which we were chayshish for that exact concern and had to take that into consideration beforehand. But we're talking about shelf life of like 2 weeks. A couple of days generally is not going to make a big difference, especially in refrigeration.
No, he's asking, in other words, if you bought something that has a hechsher in it that was checked, is that bulletproof forever and ever? It's not an ingredient, it's something that grows in.
Yeah, I know. So a great example that would be, let's say,
that hechsher that happened 6 months ago is still relevant today.
So where this comes up, for example, I had an instance like this when we were dealing with quinoa, where we had a certain lot where the quinoa, it was below the threshold of miyatamatsui. So technically we can matir it. But considering the shelf life and issues like that, we actually rejected it exactly for that reason. So yeah, kashrus agencies generally do need it. Chachamena Bereisha, typically do consider that. But hopefully, the famous word is after 120 years, go to Shemayim. Shemasa said, "Did we keep kosher?" We could tell them at least we paid for kosher, right? But hopefully, a proper agency takes that into consideration.
If it's vacuum packed, is that good? You don't have to worry about the bugs.
Yeah. Well, vacuum pack just prevents if there's a storage issue, bugs coming out from in, that then the vacuum pack would be broken, and then you would actually see, hey, this has been exposed to some external infestation going into it.
And can you rely on the pre-sifted flour? It's vacuum packed.
Yeah, in the United States, flour is presumed to be clean.
Okay, anybody else? Moshe Gutman, come on, you're smiling. Yeah, I'm sure you have something on the tip of your tongue.
It's funny. Some years ago, these companies got out of business. One of the major matzah factories gave us the job of sifting their flour, right? With big rotary sifters that we had in our plant to remove the bugs, and it was infested. And but we got the bugs out, at least whatever the mesh size was.
You having flashbacks now?
Yeah. And I was in the canning trades for many, many years. Went through all the stuff with chlorine flumes and all this stuff with the vegetables, all kinds of stuff. I remember a good hashkaka. Yeah.
Okay, Rabbi Sharrat, Shekoyach.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, there was a time, several years ago, before the disengagement in Gaza, that we had lettuce that came and from Gush Kativ that was hydroponic or something like this. I don't know if that's happening anymore, but there are people who are now growing stuff in greenhouses and like in different ways. Are they? Do they still have the problem with bugs?
Oh yeah,
or not?
In a way, they have more of a problem with bugs. I've been to close to 50 different hydroponic facilities, greenhouse, indoor, out, and I don't know of a single one that has not had a bug issue at one point in time or another, even ones that we certify. And it takes a lot of.
Why do they even care? You're saying they don't even care. Why do they want to? Why do they care to make it that way for the Jewish customer?
No, they have their Gaisha Cup reasons. We'll leave it at that.
What about ladybugs?
Because like vegans and stuff that don't want any animal products.
That's part. Well, they don't want pesticides. That's part of it.
Yeah.
Moshe, you said something about ladybugs.
Yeah, about ladybugs to eliminate pesticides.
Yes. So that's a different parsha of beneficial pests that eat the bad bugs. That the bad bugs are determined by they eat your lettuce.
Right.
So they will integrate releasing beneficial bugs to eat the bad bugs. The issue with most of these types of beneficial bugs is at the end of the day, they're so usher to eat for us.
Right.
But
okay, I'm gracing Yashikayat. Everybody looks you got everybody engaged. Sometimes I have to really work. It was very nice. Thank you very, very much. Very informative. And we know what to look out for. I'll see if next year everybody's going to start whipping out magnifying glasses. I know it's because of you. All right. That's your I hope you enjoyed it.
Yeah, Vada. Good island. Geschmack. Okay. Atzlacha, Rabbi Sai. Good night.
Well, do you have an answer to the question I asked about the shechita? I don't hear you.
He's gone.
Yeah. All right.
Rabbi, I don't hear you.
Yeah, you're muted, Rabbi.
I'll check it out. I'll get back. Tomorrow we'll talk about it, okay?
I didn't hear anything about anything you said before.
I said I'll check it up. We'll get back to you tomorrow.
Okay. Sure.